Troubleshooting on the fly. Hello and welcome to the Bacon Bites. We're just getting set up here, and as we do that, I will go ahead and switch it over to let's go to this camera. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you joining us on this new year, first Saturday of the new year, which is exciting. So hopefully you guys are back at work or enjoying some additional time off as you get ready for the holidays. Not get ready for the holidays, coming off the holidays. So hopefully audio is going out. I know that was something that we had issues with last week. Shout out to Paul Johnson for his help on that. So hopefully, again, like I said, everybody's having a good time. Everybody's back at work and getting ready to go back to work, and just again enjoyed some time with family this new year. So one of the things that we're going to do today is again, like we always do, is we're going to go through and give a couple of shout outs to follow in the community, and then after that we'll get into some of the updates, a little bit of news, and then from there we're going to go ahead and get into flow. And as always, we're going to do this as quickly and efficiently as we can, so that way when baby Bacon wakes up later, we can go back and hang out with him. So anyways, hopefully, again, like I said, everybody's had a good time and is ready to start off on another great year in 2019. With that, we'll go ahead and jump into the community. So wanted to give a couple of quick updates and shout outs to people that I follow in the community. This is something that started even with our first podcast, or not a podcast, first live stream. Was hanging out with somebody, and they wanted to know who should they follow when it comes to Dynamics 365, and how do they understand the space and who's in it. Excuse me. And so that was something that we've done, and so every week we've been highlighting two different individuals. And this week I want to highlight Neil Benson, who's also known as Customary. It's customer with a Y, and so. Neil's been somebody that I've been following for quite some time now. He's somebody that he is a Microsoft MVP. And so one of the things that he does and he's focused on is Scrum and Agile. And so what does that look like when it comes to Dynamics 365 projects? So he's somebody that is definitely taking a different take. It's not down into the details necessarily and saying, okay, this is how you configure JavaScript and stuff like that. And so I very much appreciate his take on different aspects of it. And so how do we do a project, and how do we do a project well, and how do we use it using the Agile methodology? So it's something that's often being talked about in the community already when it comes to the development community. And so it's great talking to Neil and following him. I don't have this one up yet. CRM audio podcast. Had the opportunity to actually connect with him, and it's kind of nice. This was not planned at all. I had scheduled Neil for this week already. And then my interview, I had an opportunity to either be interviewed by him or interview him as part of the Serum Audio podcast. And so had the opportunity to go ahead and connect with him for about 45 minutes or so, and had the opportunity to be on his podcast. And so if you want to go ahead and check that out, it is in the description. I think it's in the description. If it's not, I'll go ahead and put it out there. I'll go ahead and drop it here in the chat for those that are interested. And so this was just a conversation I had with Neil. And so I had taken Neil's course. Neil does a course here that's very helpful for those that are interested in seeing what it looks like and what it looks like to do Agile. And he uses the terms and methodologies when it comes to Dynamics 365 when it comes to Agile. And so anyways, so had taken this course and then had the opportunity to connect with him at Summit 2018 there in Phoenix. And then he asked me to be on his podcast, just interview. And it was a great time interviewing him, and had the opportunity to ask him a number of different questions when it came to what it looks like to have an Agile project in government. And so a lot of the work that I've been doing has been in the government space or the public sector space in the last couple of years. And so what does that look like? Because that's very different in their approach and what their needs are and what their requirements are. Maybe not their requirements, but they have a set budget and they have a set time frame. And so how do you apply Agile to that methodology when you have a minimum viable product that has to be met? And it's often something that needs to go through there. And so the other one that I asked him about is how do you bid something like that? And so anyway, so check out that podcast. It was a great opportunity I thoroughly enjoyed getting to connect with him and hearing more about it. And from there, again, with Neil, he does offer a course. And so I just want to highlight that. I took the course. I had already taken the Scrum Master certification and stuff like that. And so I had the opportunity to then take this course afterwards, about a year and a half afterwards. And so the course that I had taken before was two days on site full. And it was allowed me to become a certified Scrum Master. But this was a great refresher and a great introduction for anybody that's looking to learn more about that. How to Agile, what is Agile, and so forth. So it's actually something that I've worked with our company, so that way our West Coast team is all taking this course right now. And Neil has discounts and stuff like that, so definitely check that out if you're interested in doing it as a team or as an individual. The other thing that Neil does, and I don't have a picture of it readily available, but he's very much somebody. Let me see if I can do this on the other screen real quick. He's very much creating a community around the stuff that he's creating. And so he's somebody that he takes it, he's very professional. He's taking it personally. He's he takes it not like personally, like you make a comment and takes it personally, but he's somebody that very much is all about making sure that people find value. And so he has his own LinkedIn group, which I didn't pull up to highlight, but he did just send this out. I think it was yesterday. And hopefully, Neil, this is kind of spoilers because I don't think you've made this public yet. So hopefully I don't think we have NDAs or anything like that with you. Anyways, Neil, comment down below, shoot me a tweet, let me know if this was a little too early. Anyways, this is just an example of what Neil does. He's taking it he's going out and creating a periodic table. And so this is the kind of investment that he's making. And again, it's I took the course 6 months ago, and he's continuing to make sure that I have the materials and the group of people that he's worked with have some materials that they need. So anyways, check out Neil Benson. Highly recommend it. Great guy to follow, and definitely has a different take than some of the other MVPs that are more technical. So nothing against those technical guys at all, and we'll highlight some more of them shortly. So that's Neil. in Australia, Brisbane. And so it was funny. I was tweeting with Eliza. I think it's Eliza. Down in Australia as well, and she's like, "There's no way we're doing this. 9:30 Pacific is like way early in the morning in Australia." And so that was something that Neil and I had to coordinate for the interview. And so I think that'll be something that I maybe will do a late Friday night one sometime, and then so that'll be Saturday morning for those down in Australia and on that side of the world. And then we'll do another one in the morning sometime. So be on the lookout for that. So that's Neil. The other person I wanted to highlight is Ulrik Carlson, or as everybody knows him, the CRM chart guy. Ulrik is somebody that I've followed, I don't even know how long, since I started with Dynamics. So 7 years ago or so, 7+ years. I think everybody knows my story, but I started in the accounting department, whatever, the IT department. And because I understood numbers and understood sort of, I enjoyed charts and Excel and stuff like that, I started pulling out data out of Dynamics. And so theming and charts and stuff like that within Dynamics, and making sure that we have the right formatting and all that kind of stuff was fairly tricky because it's all in the XML. And so Ulrik, or the CRM chart guy, had a blog, and so he still does. And it's essentially, how do you report on data? And so highly recommend for those that are looking at again, you get in Power BI and Power Query and stuff like that. But Ulrik has a lot of good stuff, especially if you need to code some of the fetch XML. And so it's definitely been a transition. I've seen him go from this deep tech, it's not deep technical stuff, but it's like he'd gone through all the XML and said, okay, this is what this XML does. This is how you use it to change it. I think he even collaborated with somebody on an XRM toolbox. Yeah, edit charts for XML. And so so a lot of the information and the content that he had gleaned over the years, what he did is he went ahead and created an XRM toolbox tool plugin. I don't know exactly what the term is. And so anyway, so he collaborated on that, and so that's a great source for those that are looking to update their charts and being able to make them more friendly and show the labels on the different parts. Or sometimes you get like something's like 1 million and everything else is typically 100,000, and so it skews your chart, because anytime you get a $50,000 item, it's going to go it's going to look super small, whereas typically it's actually half of what your usual deal is. So anyway, so he's a great person that I've been following and have learned a lot from. And so highly recommend checking out Ulrik and CRM Chart Guy. And so you can find him on Twitter at CRM Chart Guy. And again, you can find his blog at the crmchartguy.com. So, hey, good morning, CRM MVP podcast from Atlanta. Very nice. So you're not doing the coffee like we're doing here in Seattle, but it sounds like maybe some sweet tea down there in Atlanta, in A-Town. Very nice. Thanks for joining this morning. So that's a little bit about Ulrik and CRM Chart Guy. So highly recommend checking him out as well. So that's a little bit about the some of the individuals in the community. The other thing that I wanted to highlight when it comes to the community, we've done this every week, is what's going on. And again, I know for those that have watched us every week or have watched the intros every week, you guys are probably getting sick of this, but Seattle chapter, I want to highlight y'all when it comes to D365 customer engagements, or CE. What we're looking at here is, again, we have that meeting coming up on February 13th. So right before Valentine's Day, it's going to be over in Bellevue. Come check it out. For those that are in the area, please feel free to go here as well. All the information should be down in the description below. And so we're going to be focusing on an app in a day. And so Microsoft will be leading that at the Microsoft office over there in Bellevue. And we will be going through that. And I think it's a hands-on lab, if I remember correctly. And so it'll be Power Apps, but from a D365 bent or angle. So check that out. Feel free to message me on here, on Twitter, or anywhere, and I can get you more information. And again, the information here is in the meeting notes. Other things I wanted to highlight, again, the Power Apps community. It's hosted by Dynamics 365 communities as well, or Dynamics communities, I guess, is the company. Same company that is doing the Dynamics communities CE stuff. So, we are tentatively planning a meeting in March for this. So we're going to use the one in February for Dynamics CE to kick off the one for March for Power Apps. And so we're probably going to do every the third month of the quarter is what we're looking at right now for the Seattle chapter. Right now, I don't think we've put anything out on this website. So I have a meeting later today with Mundar, who's co-leading this chapter, to go over that. So we hope to get some more information out here shortly. Other thing, and the last thing I just wanted to highlight as far as the community goes is you can go here from the website and you can visit the website. So we'll just go ahead and click on that. Is the Power Platform World Tour. And so this is a tour that they're doing across the nation. It's kind of a mini conference. It's actually 2 days. It's not the Dynamics 365 Saturdays. So just be aware that these are 2 different sort of traveling road shows that are going on. And there's one down in Tampa towards the end of this month. There's one it says Silicon Valley. If you look at the location, and we'll pull that up here, it's actually San Jose. And so I think that's a branding thing. People aren't super excited to go to San Jose. I don't know. I don't know San Jose. But so definitely don't mean any offense. But anyways, February the 19th and 20th. So right after Valentine's Day there, right in the middle of the month. And then Chicago in April. So one of the things I wanted to highlight is I actually have the opportunity to speak at this event. So I will be down in, for the Silicon Valley one, I will be down in San Jose. So 19th and 20th for this conference. So I have the opportunity to speak at that. So I'm just going to do a shameless plug of my session. And so we're going to be doing the, oh, look, a new shiny tool. And where does it belong in the business applications tool belt? And so I think it very much pairs sort of what we've been doing here on Saturdays. Is it's awesome. It's like, look, there's Flow and it's so cool. And there's Power Apps and Power BI. And these are really cool tools, but how do we use them? When do we use them? And why do we use them? And that's what we're going to be focusing on this meeting. And so it's an hour long. It's not going to be deep technical stuff. It really is going to be focused in kind of like I put here on the different tool sets. And so if you're coming from AWS or Salesforce.com or Microsoft, I think there's an opportunity for you to use any of these tools coming from those different items. So it's not something that you have to, it's not very specific. It doesn't have to be Dynamics 365. And so wanted to take it from that side and that angle. And so anyways, so check it out. Excited to be speaking at that event and with that upcoming. So if you're going to be at that event, feel free to reach out and let me know. The other person that I wanted to highlight, and we've highlighted on this show before, is John Levinsky, I think is how you say the name. So he's a Microsoft rep that has, we've highlighted on the show before, but he's presenting at the general session. And so he's somebody that's very active in community. He's the one that hosted the Microsoft Flow all-day conference, virtual conference. And so if you want to connect with him as well, highly recommend that at that event. And he may be speaking at some other events. So here's some of the other speakers. To be honest, I don't recognize very many of these people. Again, I'm fairly new to the Power Apps space, but excited to meet some of these other speakers that will be down there in Silicon Valley. And just for kicks and giggles, here's where it talks about the Microsoft office here. And you notice that it's, I don't know, I call this San Jose, and I think this is Silicon Valley up here with San Mateo. And NetSuite, for those that are familiar with it, is in San Mateo. So NetSuite's another ERP, so a business application that's cloud-based, sits on Oracle, and so that's up there as well. And then, of course, Palo Alto right there in the middle. So anyways, excited to be there. Looking forward to it. And if you guys, again, are headed that way, hit me up and I'll make sure to connect over lunch or a meal or over dinner or something like that. So looking forward to connecting with everybody. So cool. With that, it was a little loud. I don't have any news items this morning that we wanted to cover. If you have some news, feel free to drop it down while I give the podcast update. So I know that takes a few seconds for it to go from me to you. So check that out. And while that goes, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the podcast update. And just give me a second while that comes up on my side. I think I used my other account. So this will just take a second real quick. What I want to do on the podcast. So again, if you have any news, go ahead and drop it in the news, in the link in the chat, and I will go ahead and we'll go out and visit it together. What I was going to pull up here on the podcast stuff is I wanted to highlight what we've been doing as far as branding goes. Here we go. So I was working on this, and so we do have a podcast coming. It's with Jamie Barker out of the UK, and I was just gonna pull up Jamie's real quick. So Jamie Barker, out of I didn't realize he was in Wales. Huh, and interesting. So it's funny because Jamie and I have never actually met in person, but we both work for RSM. He works in UK and I work in the US. And again, I think we've told the story before, but we both we've connected more through the communities, through outside of work than we ever have internally with work. So Jamie and I will be doing a podcast, supplementing what we're doing here on the show and on the channel. So anyways, one of the things I was working on, and if you guys want to vote as we're going through this, we'll go through a couple of these, and we did have a vote and a panel out there. And so we got a couple of options for branding. And so very much open to people's thoughts. We have this podcast, kind of simple, got the Seattle, got the London Tower Bridge there. And then when we look at some of these other ones, again, these are slight branding changes. We got the Bacon Bites in white and the podcast in red. And then we also have just sort of nothing. And it looks kind of like, I don't know. It's one of those things where I want to say something, but I don't want to say it because as soon as I do, everybody's going to be like, oh, yeah, it's totally. But it looks like a bird to me. This kind of looks like a bird with a couple of eyes and a nose. And maybe I spend too much time on Twitter. But anyways, so that's one option. And then we have the Bacon Bites where the Bacon Bites is in red and podcast is in white. So let me know what your thoughts are. If you guys have a preference, again, I'll go through those a little slower. We just got the logo and nothing else. Adding on there, we got podcast here in white. Take a look at that. We have the Bacon Bites in white and podcast in red. Or the last one, we got the Bacon Bites in red and podcast in white. So if you guys have opinions on that, which hopefully you do, or maybe you don't. If you don't, then just vote for one, and we'll take that in consideration as we start looking to brand it. So currently, the one that led in the poll that we put out there, so we had about 6 votes. Woo woo! I think that's the most votes I've gotten in a poll, which is cool. I very much appreciate all those that have already voted on this. But the podcast in red. So it looks like this is the one people currently is saying is the winner. So take a look at that. I should have gone this view when I was showing that off. So I'll do that one more time. We got where is it at? Where's it start? So we got just the logo. We got the podcast. We got the Bacon Bites in red, podcast still in white. And we got the Bacon Bites in white and podcast in red. So anyways, if you have options and thoughts, put them down there and we will go from there. So cool. I think that's all as far as the podcast goes. We have edited 3 of them. And again, we want to record 2 more before we put it out there. So that way there's content. And people can listen to it, and then we'll get into a rhythm. And again, it was just tough over the holidays, as everybody knows, that it's hard to schedule, especially when you're about 8 hours different between everybody. So anyways, Seattle is not the center of the world, I'm finding, though Microsoft may think so and Amazon may think so and whatever. So cool. I didn't see any news come through. So if you guys have news that you guys want to cover, go ahead and feel free to drop that in there. The other thing, so we've done the community. We don't have any news per se to speak of today. And then we talked a little bit about the podcast. So with that, I know we're about, 20 minutes in or something like that. What we want to do is let's go ahead and get into some content. So today we're going to be focusing on flow. One of the things that I haven't done yet with flow and is to actually maybe hear the dog walking around in the background. One of the things I haven't done yet with flow is, I know I'm kind of scatterbrained right now, is connected into Dynamics 365. So there's been this Dynamics 365 button within Dynamics. There's a flow button within Dynamics. And so what I want to do is actually, let's do something with that button. I've actually never done it. So what I'm going to do, and again, this is the part, the first part of the show is very almost kind of scripted, as you can tell. Kind of have a plan, and the rest of this show, fair warning, is me learning flow. So if you guys are interested in that and just see how I go through it, and just sort of thoughts along the way as I'm like, oh yeah, that maybe this can be used for that or the other. That's what the rest of the show is. So for those that are new to watching the show, I think we have about 7 people here outside of the CRM MVP podcast. But if you guys have questions or you want to go a different direction or you have suggestions, Paul had some amazing suggestions last week. And so shout out to Paul again for his help on what we did last week. And I'll just quick review that for those that weren't here. It wants me to do OneDrive space. Okay, cool, whatever. My flows. What we did was we sent an email. Maybe we didn't send an email. Maybe it was a different environment. I haven't actually tried to go through a flow from this side. Okay. Anyways, as you can tell, this is what the rest of the show is going to be like. So feel free to stick around. Love interaction. I appreciate Atlanta giving a shout out. So if you want to shout out where you're from, that's awesome as well. What I want to do, let's go to Admin Center. Let's go to the Power Apps Admin Center because I think that's where we created it from. And this is one of the things that it's interesting because Microsoft is working on it. And it's still, occasionally you feel like it's still under construction sometimes. This is not what I was thinking. Is there just like a powerapps.com? Nope, not what I was thinking. Yeah, this is what I was thinking. How do you get to here from there? Because that definitely took us to a different place, right? This is where... Anyways, that's what I got. So anyways, what we did last week, if I remember right, there should be some flows in here. Yeah, so why is this flow here, but it wasn't where the flows were? So this is where I get confused in how the flows are in different places. And so again, people are going to laugh, but it's kind of, I'm very much poking around and going through this. We will pull up a tutorial on what to do and where to go. That's out there, but I know there's an 8-hour course, but I enjoy kind of poking around and seeing what's out there without necessarily going through the course first. Can I open this? How do you open this? Edit this. So this was the flow we created last week. So when a record gets created in Dynamics, go ahead and if the owner, so this is doing some conditional formatting. So if the owner if the created by is not the owner, then send the owner an email from Exchange. And so that's what we did last week. We tried to do some additional things here. We were like, well, maybe we want to dump it into a CSV file. And so that was the flow we did last week. And what I'm curious on doing this week is when you actually open a record, let's open a lead. So when a lead comes in, let's send a very similar to email, potentially, or let's fire a flow. So we got, of course, there's not a flow button up here. There it is. So flow, create a flow, see your flows, log into flow. Okay. So that's what we're going to do today is interact with this. And so interesting that now I'm logged into flow all of a sudden. Okay. Anyways, so let's go ahead and pull up Dynamics 365 flow. And so go ahead and open that one. The other one I wanted to see, flow trigger and trigger flow with Dynamics, button, create a flow. Those are all good ones. Looked like there was approval one. I want to see what, oh. So this one would be interesting. And again, I think obviously people already have stuff out there. And so this is very much, if you want to go and jump ahead and see what people did and how they went through it, jump over there and read these articles. I'll go ahead and drop them in the chat as they look beneficial. I think this one is. Again, I haven't read this. I mean, you guys are seeing this real time, right? So approvals for Dynamics 365 using Flow. I think this is going to be one that we probably will go through. So when a lead is created, maybe we'll just create this one. Go through this stuff. I'm game. This looks good. Approved, yes or no. I'm going to leave that one open. This is in Flow. So this is where, and how did we get here? This is, so it's a connector. So can I go backwards? So here's all the different popular connectors. Interesting that they don't have Dynamics up there. But again, this is me just being me. But this is where I get crazy, and this is where it's so cool. So when we're talking about flow, and we're talking about, and this is what I want to talk about when in San Jose next month, is look at all this stuff. There is so much stuff here when it comes to different connectors, and when do you use these? And like, again, I don't have deep knowledge into the Salesforce stuff, but when do you use a connector that's in your Office 365 tenant, and when should that be used when you're using Salesforce or SQL or Act? I mean, there's Adobe Sign. I mean, there's all these different things, but what I think, and again, what I think there is there's going to be commonality where it says, okay, when we talk about this stuff, this is when you use it. Doesn't matter where the trigger is, where the data is coming from. This is when you would use a tool like this. And I know people have been using Scribe and Kingsway Soft and some of these other ETL tools that are dedicated ETL tools, and they have their own servers and stuff like that. And I think Flow still, from what I've seen and heard from MVPs, is the fact that that Flow is not to that level yet. Not yet. Soon, but not yet. So when we get into this kind of stuff, I think there's a lot of triggers. There's a lot of things. I mean, Salesforce chat, it looks like it's a separate thing than Salesforce, but I would assume that's a chat bot. And so being able to leverage that, and again, not getting into all the details because I don't have the depth there, and it's not something that I'm currently on a project that's requiring it. And it's very much a lot of what I do and what I present is based on requirements that I've done. We do have a project starting up next week, and so that'll have a lot more sort of real life content that I'll be bringing into these shows as we're going through it. But go to meetings. I mean, it's this kind of stuff where it's like, okay, for those that are in that space, when do you use this and how do you use it? So anyways, enough on that soapbox, but very much something that I'm interested in. But going all the way back up to how we get back there. And so here's some of the triggers. I wonder if these are all the triggers. A trigger is an event that starts a flow. Created, deleted, updated. When a record is created in preview, how is that different than this? Created or deleted, created or updated. Like this one's a combination of the two. And so this will allow you to run it as opposed to on both of these. And so this is more of that concept of you can currently run a workflow in Microsoft Dynamics that listens for different triggers. So if this field's updated, then go for it. So anyways, I think we're going to go back and use that, go through the one that we pulled up before. Create a SharePoint item based on Dynamics 365 records. That's interesting. So these are all the template ones, and I think people can add to these. It looks like it's sorted based on use, number of times used. This one's really cool. Just adding a button, and then it's going to fire a flow, right? So right now, what we were looking at is you go up here and like create a flow or see your flows. But my guess is that this button, oh, there's that continue. This is what we didn't have last week, right, Paul? I don't know if you're watching today. You haven't commented down in the chat yet. But Paul, this is what you were saying. Yeah, it should be down below. It looks like your environment's different. But anyways, I think that gives you a dedicated button, which then you can then trigger to go do something, right? So you put it in there and say, trigger this approval. I'll be interested to see if the other individual did that. Create a note, when a new opportunity is created, post in Yammer. I feel like you used to be able to do that. I don't know. Apparently not. Sales account to Dynamics for operations. Okay. That would make sense. Receive a weekly email summary of new Dynamics opportunities. Oh. I want to see this one real quick. So this is also what happens. We get kind of sidetracked on this show. Oh, come on. No, there it goes. Okay, cool. So it reoccurs. So we got some reoccurring, get past time. So it's going to reoccur every 7 days kind of thing. That's fine. List of records. What? Okay, that's an organization. Entity. One of the things that, since being online, that I don't know if I've seen or done is with Dynamics 365, you can't run like a summary report. And so what this looks like it's doing is going out and creating that query. It's going to a query, pulling that information. Again, this is where we're defining the query. It's not super, as we kind of went on last week, it's not super intuitive yet. It feels very much like you still need to know code and these expressions. I'm not familiar with them. Anyways, and then essentially you're querying the database with this tool, and then it's going to create an HTML file for you, or an HTML table, and then it's going to get your profile, it looks like, from Office 365, and then send an email as part of that. So that's super cool because that's going to give somebody a list. I'm curious, again, we're not going to go through this today, but maybe we'll come back to it another week. And if they could click on that list, so it comes up in their, I mean, going crazy here, but it comes up in their mobile application. They get the email on their mobile phone, right? They click on it. Does it open the mobile application? Can you direct them to a Power App or something like that, maybe, or maybe to a Power BI chart or something like that? Or, I mean, kind of go in the other direction. Could you embed this? And maybe Power BI already does this, but I think they do. Could you send a weekly summary? So anyways, that one's really cool. Receive a weekly email summary, because that's something that sales teams are always asking for. So a sales manager wants to know what that is. What was the end of the week like? Or maybe Monday morning before my meeting with them. What is that? And then being able to go into Dynamics and see that. So create a new item when a new list item is added. New record. Oh, in SharePoint, sorry. I was thinking like an order item. It's like, that doesn't help. Add notes to a Dynamics CRM contact. That's kind of cool. I guess you couldn't do that with workflows before, adding a note in there. I don't know if I ever tried. This is cool. I think creating the leads based on tweets. I'm glad to see that that's up there. So somebody asked, hey, what's the specs on this or whatever? Has anybody seen this? And so I think you probably can listen to it and then have that created as a lead, because you know somebody's talking about your product. And so is that something that you can follow up on? Also curious on some of these other ones. Extract data from a new email and create a record in Dynamics. This looks, I don't recognize that symbol. Parser is an email. This allows you to extract it. Huh. Email parser. Looks like they did parse with just an extra R, and so it does what it says. Anyways. Okay. Dynamics activities to plan. I think that's project, which is cool. Add a Dynamics case after email approval. I understand the email approval part. I'm curious why you'd be creating a case. It looks like there's almost 100 people that have downloaded that. Man, there's a lot. And there's more. So if somebody knows, I think you can post these. It looks like Pitney Bowes put one out there. Is this going to be a good one? I think it is, but this is very interesting. So this is what I'm talking about right here. So from Salesforce to Pitney Bowes to Dynamics and Google Sheets, right? So you're able to go through all from like the billing address and stuff like that. So validates the billing address from a newly created Salesforce account. So again, we're going from Salesforce, creates a Dynamics 365 account with a cleansed data address. So now we're talking about a company that has multiple departments going on. And so maybe, I mean, we had this at RSM for a while. Our sales team was on Salesforce, and our project teams were on CRM. And so we've since moved over, but at the same time, in large organizations, this happens just because of regions or whatever. You can have that kind of stuff. So anyways, that's a great example of how you're going across and using a tool like this to go across. So weekly copy from one to the other. Cool to see that Microsoft's doing that. Okay, I'm not going to get too much more distracted by this, but this is copy last quarter's Dynamics goals to Excel Online. This is potentially super cool. Okay, last one. It looks like these are duplicates or the same. Last one. But anyways, one of the things that it's funny because Gus, I think, had on his Gus Gonzalez most recently on his CRM MVP podcast, he talked about how people hate goals and they don't like goals. I forget exactly what he was talking about or why he was talking about goals, but it stuck out because they have a unique need. Goals meet a unique functionality that's, I don't know where else you can find it in Dynamics. And even though it hasn't been updated for a while, maybe that's what he was talking about. It got recently updated. Anyways, with goals, one of the biggest pain points is the fact that in order to do next quarter's goals or next year's goals, you have to like re-upload a bunch of stuff or manually create a bunch of stuff. So it'd be interested to see taking this and saying, okay, go ahead and create these goals and move them over to next year or next quarter. And then you just have to update the goals themselves or like update the values, and you could do it in Excel and then just re-upload it. So I'd be very curious to see if somebody's created a flow for that. But that would, it takes the way people do goals and the way information needs to be in upload formats are two very different things. And so it does take time, or has taken time to extract. Okay, sales manager says Johnny needs to sell $12 million for the year. So that means $1 million a month, or maybe it's spread differently. But each one of those is a monthly one, right? So or maybe a quarterly. So here's your quarter. You need to sell 3 million. Doesn't matter which month you sell it in, but here's your quarters. And then by the end of the year, you need to do 12 million, but you need, it's a roll up, right? And so how are you able to roll up across on mismatching items? So one's a month or one's a quarter and the other one's a year. So anyways, very curious, and just want to highlight this one because that may be super helpful for some people. So this is kind of highlighting, I don't know that CRM blog. I don't know this individual by that handle. I know it's not Izod. Anyways, I don't recognize this person or this blog. But It looks like it was done in EMEA in Dublin. So, anyways, trigger a flow with dynamics field change. This is what we are just talking about. This is a workflow. And so I think he's talking about how this goes over and how it triggers. And that was one of those things that we just saw a minute ago. So anyways, go ahead and close that. This one's a Dynamics 365 button. So it's a custom button. I'm just going to click in here. I don't think we'll use this for now. When a record is selected, interesting that it's already deprecated. That's funny. Why? Oh, there's already a version 2 out there. I think for those that have already done Flow, they probably are familiar with this. This is why we're seeing that preview option earlier, is because there's a version 2 on the operator name is updated. So there's probably is created, updated, like we saw, deleted, and updated. Updated a record, updated list of records. Where's this at? I'm going to drop this in the chat for those that are interested in learning more about this. Let me... Oops. Sorry, I'm doing something on the other screen real quick. Just getting the chat set back up. I accidentally closed it, which is not helpful for those that are trying to chat through. As always, we welcome people's comments and thoughts and how they maybe will use it. I know it's on a little delay, so try to make sure that I ask the question and leave it up there for a while. But let's go ahead and close this one. But it's interesting that this one's already deprecated, because that would have been kind of cool. You select a record, it pops up in a button, and then it goes. So looks like it's deprecated, so we're not going to spend any more time on that. And then create a flow using Dynamics 365 online. From a template, this is what we've been looking at. Create it from a lead. Create a task from a lead. Well, maybe go through this one. It's just sort of an example. Wonder list task. What's a wonder list task? I'm glad they... This is different. Microsoft back in the day would not have this, right? So they would have, they may have a term, but if you're not familiar with the term, they wouldn't have a link out to it. So this looks like another, so it's another business application. I'm familiar with this one, but it looks like it's a specific, it's almost like Exchange integrated with a couple of different things. Easiest way to get stuff done. That's what everybody says. Whether you're planning a holiday, sharing shopping list with a partner, managing multiple work projects, help you take off all your personal and professional to-dos. So it's a to-do list calendar thing. Books, flights, watch Interstellar. Huh. It looks like they have some apps and stuff. Collaborate with everybody. Looks like it's got an integration with, what is that, Dropbox? Okay, well, we're not here to learn about this, but it's an interesting tool. I haven't come across this in work yet. I haven't seen anybody using this. So if you're using this, feel free to drop something down in the comments and maybe why you're using it or how you're using it. But it's interesting that they're highlighting it here in the Microsoft Documents. And I'll drop that link as well, just as part of it. Trigger-based logic when a record is created. We talked about this already. Initiate your flow within a few minutes of it occurring. Specify advanced options. You add a step to a flow. Okay, so everything else that we've kind of seen up here at the top in the intro, we've already found elsewhere. And we've seen it in the system itself. And this is why I typically go poke around the system, go look for documentation, and then read through the documentation, because I've already got a sense of, oh yeah, okay, I understand that. If there's more details or something like that, maybe I'll skim through the steps. But I think you can find a lot just by poking around and stuff. So when you add a new step, click on the show advanced options, add a filter, order by query, controls how the data is filtered in the flow. Interesting. Filter makes sense, or order by query, that's cool too. And how the data is filtered in the flow. So again, when we're ingesting information into the flow, what's the process, or what's the order that this information? Do you want it alphabetized by the volume or something like that? And if you're then creating something over in another environment, then it's going to go through and it's going to be, okay, created by is going to be this person, it's going to be on this date, and it's going to have this type of order. So retrieve only active contacts, that's the filter. You can order by them last name. Because maybe the other thing, and this is more practical than the example I just gave, is if you're doing an Excel file. So you're creating a table somewhere, right? And so if I'm creating an Excel table or a CSV table like we saw last week, or an HTML table, let's sort it, right? So not only do we like just pull randomly out of the database, I say randomly, but when we send that email notification, email summary for those opportunities, let's go ahead and sort that based on the volume. And so that's something that would be very helpful. So anyways, specified advanced option. So again, that's the filter query order by kind of thing. And so you can do that. Best practices when using advanced options. So here we have, again, that advanced options that we expanded out. I think like hide advanced options. I think we've seen this. Do we have one pulled up? I don't think we have one pulled up yet, or currently. When you add a value to a field, you must match the field type, whether the field types, pretty common. How to use text fields require a single line of text or dynamic text that is a text type of field. Include the category and subcategory. So where to find them: settings, customizations, customize the system into task fields. Name is categories. Interesting. Sorry, we'll keep going. This is just showing you where in Dynamics to find it. So if we were to pull, where's my Power Apps? We'll give this a shot. Oh yeah, this is the issue we had last time. Let's duplicate this one. Again, I think we had a discussion, or somebody had a discussion. Yeah, it's the right one. This environment hasn't liked working through that application side yet. So what they're talking about is going to your settings. We'll just go to customize the system. Customizations, customize the system. Interesting, it doesn't take you, tell you to go through a solution. And so what they're talking about here, I think we had this issue last week where if it's on the screen that I'm displaying, it doesn't show up. Interesting. Maybe it's not going to come up. Anyways, for those that have been around Dynamics before, I need to throw out this environment and use a new one next week. I'll do that next week when we do it. So the solution works. Anyways, I don't know why. So what they're talking about here is going to here, going to the entity, so account, and then going to the fields themselves. And then from there, I don't know if we have any fields on this one. We don't, but when it comes to, heck, we'll just add. I'm going to put this on the other screen. I think maybe it go faster, maybe it won't. What they're talking about here is just going to that location and grabbing, this is where I'm curious if it's the category, the name or the schema name that's coming in. I think it's the schema name because it's all lowercase, whereas the name itself can be upper and lowercase. And that's something that if you've done JavaScript before, it's something that you're familiar with, that there is a difference between those two and what needs to be called. So anyways, well, that's what we got there. So more examples of fields that require both ID and lookup types. This is something, again, if you've done any type of JavaScript, it's something you're familiar with. The fact is that anytime you do a lookup, you have essentially, I think there's 3 pieces of information. You have the entity type or the entity ID. I think for accounts it's 1, contacts is 2, kind of thing, and any custom item you create is going to be like 10,000 or something like that. And so each entity has a unique ID associated to it. So you need to know that. You also need to know the GUID. So that's the 36 character ID specific for that record. And then you also have potentially the name, but I don't think that's often required, if I remember right. It's been a long time since I've written JavaScript. So, but very similar here. You must use the owner field must be a valid user or team record ID. So again, we talked about that, and the type must be either system users or teams. And again, that's because that owner type can have 2 different types. So it can either be a system user or a team. Same thing with customer is the accounts and contacts, that new customer field, that's a lookup field. And then we also have this regarding type. So, and again, the regarding type, this is the one. So the other ones, it looks like you don't need to know the entity, because if you're setting a lookup that only has 1 value, so you're looking for a parent record, and it's only if you uploaded, I'm trying to think of one, opportunities and cases. If you create a custom field, events, and you want to tie it to a campaign, you can have many events tied to one campaign, right? And so that event, that lookup's only going to have 1 lookup type, and so that's going to be a campaign, versus these other ones which can have multiple. So again, regarding anything where you have an activity is where that's going to come in. So that's regarding the owner system, and find the record IDs. Interesting. So interesting. So it's not a dynamic one. This is like hard coding this individual's GUID in there. So here's how you find the record. This is old school. This is real old school. What it's doing is it's saying, hey, if you want to know the ID for this record, guess what? Go pop open this, and then guess what you got to do? You got to go find the ID between these two. And so you got to find, what is it, 7B through percentage 7D. And we used to do this all the time. And so if you're familiar with it, super easy. You're just like, oh, it's right there, right? But I've been doing this for 7 years, so I just know that's how you do it. For people that are new to this, it'd be nice if there was an easier way to do this. And I know there are tools. What is it? Level Up or Power Up? Let me pull that up. This is a tool that if you're an end user, close your ears, plug your eyes. I don't want you to know this as an end user. Fast forward the video for like 30 seconds, a minute. You shouldn't know what this tool is. For those that don't know what this tool is and you're a sysadmin, then you can stick around. Interesting. Daryl Labar was on there. Cool. We'll have to highlight Daryl next week. He's done a lot of good stuff for the community and the opportunity to catch up with him. Anyways, I should add this to this browser real quick. So what this does is on a record, it's a plugin to Chrome, right? So here we have a plugin to Chrome. Just look it up, Level Up for Dynamics 365. I think if I drop this, does this go to where? Okay, that looks like the right place. So I'm going to drop that in the chat. Anyways, tools like this are super helpful, but it can be way too powerful for most people. So open record by ID, so you can look for a specific one, but there should be an option here. And I know that those that, I thought you could open my roles, my settings, enable navigation, disable. Oh, interesting. Power Platform admin. That's what we talked about earlier. Instance picker. Preferences, open main mailbox. I thought there was a way, and maybe there's not. But anyways, was pretty sure there was, but you could like open a specific record, not open a specific record, but it'll pull the ID for you as opposed to, and you just copy it for you. As opposed to, I'm going to do Aaron Banks. It's a little more exciting. This is opening a record by the ID, but I thought there was another one. So anyways, it doesn't look to be working on this environment. Again, I'm going to check this environment for next week. But anyways, you can pull the ID. So longer story short, coming back here, getting the ID, because that's what you're going to need to drop in there if you wanted to associate the state of Washington or something like that directly in there. Okay. I think we've kind of gone through, we've pulled up sort of the top 3 or 4, I guess it was 5 different articles. The one that I think is most beneficial that I want to walk through, I'm going to close this, is this one, this approvals one. So let's walk through it. And so this was put out about 6 months ago. And we'll just walk through what it looks like to do an approvals using 365 using Microsoft Flow. So I think this is something that everybody, and I want to say everybody, I feel like this is a very common one that people are highlighting with Flow. It's not, at this point, it's not very creative, but it's something that's very basic and very core now. And you can even think about this. If somebody needs an approval for an opportunity, shoot them an email, let them know. The other thing that would be that we often do is when a new contact is created, having that go through some sort of process for approval and say, yes, this is a good contact. You have to be, that's typically where you don't have a bunch of contacts necessarily, but if somebody has a dedicated data quality person, maybe that's something that they can help with. And so what you could do is you could say, okay, this needs approval because it's a newly created one. And we used to do this with views and say, okay, here's all the items that people recently created. Let's maybe do some scoring or something like that and saying, okay, it looks like this person matches somebody else and do some scoring there. But this, you could then just fire a workflow and just shoot it out type of thing. So and you can give them a list and then approve it, and maybe in the email itself. So like 12 ideas right there just being combined. I don't know if any of them are even possible. So if you guys have questions or thoughts on this, I'll go ahead and kind of slow down and pause. I know we got a couple of people out there that are still watching. You guys may be off. Who knows what you're doing? You may be off. Hopefully you're not driving. Don't be driving and listening to this. You can drive and listen, just don't drive and watch. Unless you're the passenger, in which case that's, I guess, okay. Anyways, if you're sitting on a bus somewhere, awesome. Or on a train or a plane, feel free to drop a comment or something in the chat. I always enjoy getting that. And so I'll slow down here for another 15 seconds or so. Have some coffee, see what's going on with y'all. Have you guys used Flow? I guess I'll put it out to you. How many people have used Flow? Have you used Flow? Have you used it? So I guess that's, and you guys can just answer A, B, or C or something like that. So we'll do A, have you used it before? So A, I have played around with it. So that's A. B, have you tried to use it in a business scenario? And C, have you used it for a business scenario? So A, I've played around with it. B, I've tried to use it. So you had a business use case you thought you could use it for. And then C, I've actually used it in production or in a real instance. And then D, I haven't played around with it, still trying to learn what it is. So I think we got a couple of people out there. Right now it says we got about 5 people. I don't know who those people are. Maybe it's my mom like it was last week. So hi, Mom, again. So it was funny. Just taking a sidestep. It was, I've broadcasted the Bacon Bites on Twitter, obviously, for those maybe that are on Twitter. Following at thebaconbites.com. Here's the Twitter handle right there. I've also done it on LinkedIn. and also created a Facebook page. And it was funny because the first couple of people that liked it were my parents, which is good. I love having parents that support you and your passions and your pursuits. And then also had the opportunity to, it was funny because I didn't like broadcast it on Facebook. I just feel like that's a weird place to broadcast stuff, but wanted to have a presence there. If you want to like our page on Facebook, it's great. It's on the Bacon Bites. But anyways, my mom reposted one of my mornings with Bacon's Bites, and it was funny because that was the most views I had ever gotten on Facebook. It was like 170, and I was like, holy cow! It wasn't views on the website, but it was views on the post. So that was kind of fun, and I appreciate it. So right now, my mom's one of my best marketers, so I probably should hire her to do my Facebook branding and stuff. So anyways, hopefully you guys have, I don't see any comments come through yet. So maybe you guys are in transit or don't have somewhere, maybe you have this up just as a sound in the background. And so, which is fine. But if you do want to vote, again, A is you've used it, or A, you've played around with it kind of like what we're doing today. B, you had a business use case that you try to use it for. C, you've actually successfully used it somewhere, or have implemented. Maybe successful is quasi in there. And then D, it's still new to it and haven't actually played around with it at all. So cool. So if you guys want to do that, the other thing I think you can do is like there's different websites that you can drop votes in and stuff. So we'll do that next time as we play around. So okay, let's jump into this hands-on. And it's been about an hour that we've been going, and so hopefully you guys have had a chance to grab some more coffee. And what we'll do is we'll jump in, and hopefully we'll get through this before Baby Bacon wakes up and changes our plans for the rest of the day. Not that he's changing the rest of the plans. The plan is for him to wake up and for us to go do things as a family. So that's the plan. Created a new approval as an example of approval email sent when a lead is created. I've connected to the demo org and selected lead entity. Okay, let's take a half step back. An email without one of the business requirements which he encountered is to provide an approval or reject request in an email without having to open Dynamics. This is now possible using approvals in Microsoft Flow. Below is an example of business scenario when a lead is created. So this is what we're trying to do. I like the way he's written this. This is the scenario. This is what we need to accomplish. When a lead is created in Dynamics 365, send an email, approval email to user. Well, maybe multiple people. That's cool. Provide some detail of the lead in the email. Once the user approves, rejects, captures the response with comments in Dynamics 365. Okay, cool. So with the comments, that should be notes. And so we looked at that earlier, that we saw that there's an automatic one. So set up the following environments: D365, Microsoft Flow, my Outlook, and I think we have all those set up. Create a new approval flow with Dynamics 365. So let's put that on the other screen. I think the best place to do this is I'm going to go from here and flow, create a flow. It's coming in from the CDS, so the Common Data Service. Sure. I want to do what he did and do it from. Interesting. So this is a record selected. Remember, we saw the Dynamics one was deprecated, but the CDS one is still active. Interesting. Actually, I don't want it when it's selected. So what's happened here? This is interesting. This is cool. It's contextual. So just be aware of this. I can do a flow here. And when I create a flow here, oh, never mind. It's the same one. It's selected. That would have been nice if it was contextual, right? So I haven't selected a record. What it anticipates me doing is selecting a record. But what happens if I do a new? Can I do, is it going to assume? Nope, all CDS. What I would have preferred it to do is when I do that, that it actually recognizes that I'm creating a new one and that it gives me that option from there. So what I'm doing here is I'm going back, creating approval flow with Dynamics 365. So I think there's a template out there. Oop. Go back. That's when an opportunity is one. Business Central. Is there filters? Add. Okay, let's do it this way. How do we... Home. Dynamics. I don't want a button, I want approval. The other option is we just start from scratch. So what we're going to do is we're going to just start it from scratch. And so when a record is created, so that's what we see here, record created. So again, I'm going to drop this one more time in the chat for those that may be around or maybe haven't been around. I'm going to drop that in the chat. And this is what we're going through. Select the environments. Currently I only have one. It is neat that you can select multiple environments and go through this. It's going to be against the lead. Looks like it's interesting that it's using the plural. I'm going to add a new, next is to create an approval. So let's go ahead and add a new step. Can I just search for approval? Yep, there's approvals right there. Add an action for approvals. Find out how you can automate approvals. Sure, cool, thanks. So the approval sends an email to the approver, creating connections for approvals. Anyone from the assigned list. Everyone. Interesting. So real quick, I think everybody knows this. The difference between anyone and everyone, right? So anyone is we have a list of people and anyone can approve it. Whereas everyone, I would assume that everybody has to approve it. And so managers and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going through this. Approval type. So I'm just going to bring that up on the other screen. Approval type, anyone from the assigned list. The title, please process this lead. And the topic, so what they do is they're pulling up the topic, and this is all information that it's coming from Dynamics, and this is going to be a dynamic component of it. Assigned to this is where I wish it would like give me can we pull the owner of the lead? The owner of a lead, please let us know. Interesting, in his, he actually assigns it to an email account. So what's the email account for this? It's admin at, so we'll drop that as the assigned to. So I'm essentially assigning myself. Interesting that it comes back. And it actually resolves. What happens if I do so let's go pull somebody else that's out of our system. Support, where are my users at? Active users, it's right there on the main page. So anyways, we should be able to, if we grab Alan, and we drop Alan in there, is that good? So it, okay, cool. So it assigns it to a couple of people, approval type, anyone from the assigned list. So I think this is assigned to the requester. This is a new field that's come up since last time. So let's do this from the owner of the record. So we've got the owner of the record, details. This is what information do we want to send. So let's send kind of like following what he had. He had first name once. Going back to CRM MVP podcast, I didn't even highlight this. Let's get through this and then I'll circle back around to that. So let's do last name. Let's just do name. We can do last name. Oh, let's enter it in. Let's do company name. I just saw that. Oh, he already had that there. And then let's do description. So we got the topic. Again, if you're familiar with leads, we got a couple of things. We got the topic here, the name, first and last. We created a new lead. That's why. Let's go back to Aaron Banks because he's going to have information. Item-based service, maintenance-based. So again, that may be something that be interested. Job title and all that kind of stuff. So these are all pulling. For those that aren't aware, these are all, this dynamic list right here is pulling from all the different attributes or fields or objects, if you will, that are in here. So what is the preferred campaign? What was their marketing source? And so you could even probably do a filter prior to this approval. So based on the marketing campaign, who should this go to? Or based on the region, send it to somebody else. So I have different, if you were going to actually architect that, you'd want to make sure it's all dynamic. So that way you don't have to create this like 20 different times and have a bunch of specific records in there. Anyways, item link, interesting. So I can put in the topic there. So I think this is going to link the item. It's almost like a recording. Description, the above lead needs approval. Please just copy and paste and essentially from what the article said. Approval, please approve or reject with comments. And for kicks and giggles, let's open and see what the advanced options are. Enable notifications. Interesting. So I wonder if that's going to pop it up on the phone when that comes through. Like it pops it up and pings it. So I'm going to save this just to make sure I don't lose it, because I'm pretty sure everybody used to remember Word when it just randomly crashes, and that's what happens. So taking a half step back, one of the things I mentioned was I was going to talk again about CRM MVP podcast. Looks like they're in Atlanta. And so wanted to to talk about my hat. Usually I wear an Atlanta hat, but what I've been trying to do is rotate the hats. So as a person that's follically challenged, it's I don't know, maybe people haven't seen. So anyways, so just take off my hat and rock it with no hat for a little bit. But anyways, so I typically wear hats just because of sun and stuff like that, and just protecting skin. And so this is a public announcement for anybody. Make sure you take care of your skin. It's the biggest organ in your body. Having married a nurse, it's something that's very important, that I don't get skin cancer and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, we'll keep going. This is why I wear hats. And so one of the things that I started to do was collect all the different hats from the World Series. And so when I first started traveling for business, I was actually in San Francisco when the Giants were in the playoffs, and it was just incredible. I'd never been in a city where the baseball team was in the World Series. And so they were in the World Series, and there was just so much hype. You'd go to like an Outback, and they had the game, and everybody was watching the game. And it's so much different than like a football, I felt like. And maybe it's just San Francisco, and they just love their Giants. Excuse me. But it was amazing. And so I'd picked up a hat because I'd forgotten one to take one on the trip, and it was a World Series cap. And so ever since then, I've been picking up the winning team's World Series cap. And so I've got probably 5 or 6 of it. And it's funny because my brother started purchasing for me. It's like, that's an easy Christmas present. I just know what it is, and it's about October time frame, and it's set. So it's been awesome. So anyways, I've been collecting those, and so that's why I wear the different caps on the show. And so this one is when Houston won a couple years ago, and so you can see the World Series patch there. So anyways, so that's a little bit about why I've been changing out the hats and why I have so many hats. The other thing I've been doing is, as I've been going to different baseball parks, I've been collecting the hat that the home team is wearing on the field. And so I've made it to a couple of stadiums: St. Louis, the Cubs, the Mariners, Atlanta, which has a beautiful new stadium. If you haven't been able to get a chance to get there, so check it out. Anyways, so that's a little bit more about caps and why I wear them, and enjoy wearing those. So anyways, back to dynamics. That was just a quick intro and sidebar on that. So let's go back to dynamics and see what's going on. So the last thing, it's funny when I meet people in real life. I had a buddy that I've been working with for years, and he saw one of my Bacon Bites videos, and he's like, "I didn't even recognize you because you put a hat on." It's funny. It's almost like a disguise. And so I'll be going to meet somebody and they've seen my LinkedIn profile, and I wear a hat, and they're like, I didn't even recognize you. So anyways, just be mindful. I may surprise you. Okay, let's get back to it. So we've saved it. When a lead is created in Dynamics, the approval is triggered and it sends an email. So is that it? Is that really it? The email? So sorry, I'm just reading through this again. So we went through step 1, step 2. When a lead is created, the approval is triggered and it sends an email to the person who needs to approve it. The email is shown below. It's from Microsoft. I'm not sure if it can be modified. The body of the email says configures. Okay, let's do it. So we've saved it. Let's test this sucker. I'll perform the trigger. So what it's going to do right now is it's listening for us to perform that action. So let's go ahead and create a new lead. Can we do it up here? So we're not triggering the lead. And this is where, I don't know, I got mixed feelings right now because of the one we chose, it actually isn't going to trigger from up top. They have $50,000 that they're looking to spend. It's going to probably be next quarter. Lead source from amazing advertising my mom's doing for me. Job title. Always the CEO when you get a chance. Company name, the Bacon Bites, of course. So that's a new one that's coming in. And social at baconbites.com. And let's not put in anything there. Cool. So very interested in the events and the upcoming products. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and view that record. Ooh, interesting. So it worked, but it failed. Oh, interesting. So go back to that flow. Where did it go? Can I go back to that? Save and test. So one of the things that I think is interesting is that it doesn't do everybody in the list. It was looking for one person. So real quick, the request failed, error code invalid approval requester. The approval requester must be a single valid user account within your organization. So a couple of things there. One, you can't be an external person. And then two, it needs to be somebody that also is only one person. So we had two people in here. So if we go drop this and save it now, and this is what I love about this flow tool right now, is we have a failed test here. We have a couple of them. So I can choose either one of them. Choose the most recent one, even though it's the same data. What it's doing is taking that data that we already had and that it's now processing that data again. So this is a super cool tool. Interesting, it failed again. Must be a single valid user account within your organization. This is me. Like, why? Like, this is the person I logged in with. Why is it not having? This is okay. Cool. So we've had fun today. Now this is enter a valid email address. So can I enter this email address and not have it resolve? Because it's been resolving automatically. So do you not want it to resolve? Nope, not going to choose it. So this is just an email address. And it wanted me to resolve. And so I thought it should be resolved. Let's rerun that test. Again, those three all have the same information. Failed again. Good deal. If you guys know down in the comments, feel free to drop it in there. And this is the other thing I get very good at with this tool. This is the article I'm reading right now for those that are interested in following along. It's in the chat. I'm not going to read it out loud too much. I'm just skimming through it. First, both assigned to and requester need to be members of your organization. Assigned to, where's the requester? Oh, the requester is interesting. So let's drop this in there as the same thing. Oh, nope, wrong one. Interesting. So your requester, even though I'm the one that's logged in, this is going to be, this is where I'm like, like you guys are close, but not there. If this works, I'm going to be a little, it looks like it's going to work. It's taking longer than last time. Oh, it's thinking. Flow failed. That was 2 minutes ago. That was way a long time ago. What is it waiting on? I assume that means it's waiting. Flow is running. Okay. Well, complete it. So this is letting me know, again, notification came through when I was on this tab that in my mailbox, I have an email. And there it is. So that was, okay. Let's finish reading the article and then we'll come back here and critique what we just did. So that's going to send it. The approver can select approve or reject within the email and add comments. And that's where we see the reason, the options. Is set to a condition for updating the response into Dynamics. So next we have to set that condition and actually write it in there. Before we do that, I'll be interested to see what everybody's thoughts are. One of the things that I think is a shortcoming of this, I mean, it's kind of a major shortcoming, is you can't have this the requester be dynamic. So I know this is new compared to what we saw out here. There wasn't a person that's requesting it. This automatically sent, so it's almost like you're requesting it from a general mailbox, because it's always going to be from the same person. And maybe it's because I'm doing my own flow. But if it's not that, I mean, if I were to go to home, my flows, and if I wanted to do my team's flows, how do I turn this into a team flow? I can share it with people, analyze it, export it, share. But I'd want it as a team flow. And I wonder if, because you want to be able to send it on behalf of somebody, right? Or even myself. And one of the issues right now is this is not allowing me to send on behalf of somebody else, which is, I mean, that's kind of the point, right? But the requester. And so I appreciate, this looks like a vendor at Microsoft responded. But anyways, it's that's a shortcoming, I think, because you should be able to put it from anybody in the system. Let's try this. Can I do, so when I did this before, it wanted auto resolve. Can I do an auto resolve on this? Can I does this work? So let's test that again using some of the data. We'll use the one that ran. It looks like it's still running somehow. Oh, because I haven't approved it yet. That's why it's still running. This looks like it's going to run as well. And so it can resolve, which is good. But it's coming from one person, which is where I have, I don't know, I have some qualms about. So we got a couple of them running out there. I got another email, and I don't, maybe you guys can hear it come through. It's dinging in my ear. So here's that information that we would expect to see. Pending approval. Our amazing lead approval. That was the topic. That's dynamic. Need a space in there. Very interesting on the upcoming events, projects. It needs to be approved or rejected. Bad request. I wonder where that's supposed to go. It's a link. But I would assume that would have taken us to the... Interesting. Okay, anyways. So a couple of shortcomings there I'm seeing. But anyways, let's finish out this guy's article. We're about at an hour and a half, which is typically when Baby Bacon likes to wake up and join us. So let me know. Hopefully you guys are still getting the video. I'm going to double check that real quick. Go out to my watch page. Looks like it's going. Okay, cool. I see people that I think are still on there. Just wanted to make sure that was happening. So chat's been real quiet today. We got about 5 people out there, and I think one or two of them, one of them's probably me. The other one's probably my mom. So, no, I'm just kidding. Hopefully you guys are finding value in this. If you are, definitely hit the subscribe button or hit a thumbs up, so that way you guys know that I know that you guys are liking this content. The fact some of you guys have stuck around for a while lets me think that you like it. If there's areas that we can improve in, we're always looking to do that. So, cool. The approver can select. So let's go back to this. The next step is to set up a condition updating the response to dynamics. I've added the condition below. So if the response equals approved, I want the lead to be updated with the response and comments. I also add a condition if the approver rejects to update the lead with the response and comments. Here's the end result. So he's got a field here. That's a yes, no field. It looks like, is it approved? Yes or no? And then what's the comments? And then a run history of it. So that looks like kind of where he ends it. It's interesting that I don't know why he cares. Oh, I understand. So if we do, so what he wants to do is on a yes. So if the, what does he have? Response. So if the response is equal to approved, equal to approve. If that's the case, which is, this is the condition, what we want it to do is to come through and do dynamics. Update record. We're going to do the same thing over here. So essentially this is going to be the same step, which is semi-redundant, I think, having this condition in here, because either way, what's happening is take. Come on, Contoso. Leads. And then the record identifier should be able to be dynamic and come from our lead. Oh, not what I wanted to do. Last name. Oh, interesting. These are required fields, and that's why it's coming in here now, because these are required fields. What I actually wanted to do is update. Holy moly. So these are all the fields. What we're going to do is, are any of these options? That's going to be easier just to do that. Let's change the industry label to sorry, I'm looking for something that's easy to find back on the form. Which is an option set, as opposed to like going through and need label, owner type. So this is where we talked about the owner ID. You can make that dynamic. It's got to be that 36 character one. Priority label, let's change that to, well, we don't have any values in there. Okay, anyways. Rating label, okay, it's hot. So if we get approved, it's hot. Hot. If we don't get it approved, then it's going to be cold because we don't have approval to follow up on that. And then let's look for, because of the way they're sized, hot. We're going to put as cold. And again, the other one, we should update the description. I don't think you can do an append. Maybe we can. Let's try it. Here's my description. So what I want to do is I want to keep the current description in there. And then add the response. Is it comments? I think it's response. And so what I'm hoping this will do is it's going to keep the description that we currently have in there. And you have to make sure you do that, because if you don't, then what it'll do is it'll just override it. And then response. You can even do the response date and stuff like that, so we won't do that for now. Include a record identifier. Oh, we forgot the record identifier in here. As lead. I like this. This has been huge. The flow checker and the new checker that is coming out with Power Apps. So let's go ahead and can I like reject these? So that way we don't have a bunch out there. Delete that. Delete this one. So let's see. The other thing that I think is interesting is, since we've taken the email address out, we haven't actually seen that come back through. We haven't seen additional emails come through. Okay, I got a little notification. I got an email. Okay, cool. So it is coming through. Wanted just circling back around. So what we did, again, we selected the user as opposed to just having the email. Because they're amazing, of course, the Bacon Bites is. And so we're going to go ahead and submit that. We'll go back over to our lead here. A couple of things that we should be seeing here. And now we have to find those fields. So the description field. Here's the description. Not lead type, item based. We may or may not find that other one. So I'll refresh this lead that's been sitting in there. Looks like we got Sales Navigator installed. Looks like I did that, but I didn't authenticate it yet. So it's refreshing that. I don't think we'll see if it came through, and we won't worry too much more about that other one. But again, we were just seeing that information came in. What I'd be curious on is pairing this with, looks like it's run successfully and it went down this path. And so it updated this record. So it shows the item. Very interested. We also set this value. Here's the outputs. Not too familiar with this, but it looks like the whole record itself. And then, so it's got a lot of, here's the whole record itself and everything. So it looked like from the flows perspective that it ran successfully. So let's go look at the description. Very interested. Approved. So that's all it has right now is approved. So I think the other one that I would have updated in here is not just the response. So approved on, so you can do like, and then here I would do comments. So do the response, not the request date, but the response date. And then here, do the comments. So I'm going to save that. Clear this out really quick one more time. Probably what I would do is instead of putting it in the description, obviously, I would probably put it in the notes. And so let's go. I think that's all I wanted to cover today. And so the next little bit, so when the baby bacon wakes up, we'll be able to jump off and connect with him a little more. Dynamics. Here's the ding. I think everybody heard that. I think you guys are hearing that. So if I do this, what'll be interesting is the fact that this is going to be sitting on top of what we just had. And so we already had the description in there once, and this is going to come in and have the description in there twice. And so we're going to see Seth is very interested in upcoming events and new projects. We're going to see that a couple of times because we kept the description in there. And you kind of already see that. I guess I can't go back. Interesting. To see what the other information was. Getting too much email from Microsoft Flow? You can unsubscribe. Interesting. Oh, here's the original email. Oh, I didn't include the approved, which I thought would have. Oh, because we were using the same information. That's why. That's kind of cool. So what I was afraid of is that it would take that description that's already in there and reinsert it. But the fact is, because we're using the test data, and that test data only had it in there once, it's only going to come through once. So let's go look at this. So it was approved on, and again, you can do some formatting with the dates, and then there's the information itself. So let's take this to the next logical extent. So we've proven that we can go ahead and bring in some of that information. What we actually want to do is not update the record. What I wanted to do is create record in Dynamics. Can we create a note? What is it, an annotation? Or do they actually do it as a note? And so the title of the note is, well, this is not fun. Oh, come on. I wanted to, oh, there they are. So what I wanted to do, so interesting. So this is going to do a couple of things that it's doing right here. Here we have the lead. So the one that we updated, the updated record, then we had, so it's this one right here. And then if you go up the tree, we have the approval. So who was the approver? What was the response? and what was the date, kind of thing. And then the description is actually the body of it, and so that's where we're going to actually contain the comments. And is there a document? No. So let's go ahead and give, we'll duplicate it over here, create record in Dynamics, Contoso, notes. And this is where it gets a little confusing because some places they want you to actually do the fields, and other places they're having you do the display name. And so I wonder if you change the display name, if it's going to come back through here. The title, again, we're going to scroll down to the approver name. Response is, so rejected on response date, and the description is the comments. So we'll go ahead and save that. We'll rerun it and test it with the same data like we have been doing. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. We'll see that email come through here in just a second. And we'll probably call it after this. It's going on 2 hours, and I think 2 hours of me talking is way long enough. You can, here's the information. It also looks like we should put a space in between the first and last names here, but we'll worry about that later. So approved. Please follow up on this lead as they are amazing people to work with. So we can go ahead and submit that. And what we anticipate doing is when we come back over here, refreshing it. We're going to see this in a couple of places, right? So for those following along at home, we'll have the description updated again. It should look the same. But the other area that we're going to see is actually this notes area here. Should be with a note. Fingers crossed. It's loading still. Drum roll. Did we do it right? No. I wonder if we needed to, so we created a note, and I bet you it's out there in random note land, because I don't think we associated it to a contact, or to a, we didn't associate it to anything. We didn't, regarding, so this is where we should do it, as regarding the lead. Regarding type is leads. So I'm going to take a half step back here and just explain what's going on. So one, I think we did create a note successfully. And so that's what we're seeing. Checking over here real quick. Do we have any notes in the system? And there's 47 notes. Any with titles? Yeah, so here's our note, right? So this does prove that it went through and created the note like we wanted to. But what the issue was is that we didn't associate it with a lead. We didn't associate it to the lead. We just created a note saying, okay, awesome, go create a note. What we did here now is that we actually created that note with that lead information. So let's save this, test this again. Same information that we've been running. And this is what I love about this. You can use the same information. I want to go back while this is running. And you'll hear the ding come over in a minute. There it is. Please move forward with the lead. So that's coming through. We'll refresh this. And now that we've associated the lead, hopefully we've done everything correct. That'll come through. The other thing I wanted to do was grab in some of the conditional formatting that we did last time. So when we sent the email, this format date, I'm just going to snag this so that way we get it to pretty up a little. I should have dropped that over here. So this is some code, and I can drop this code in if you guys want it. But this is what we used last time, essentially, and I'll drop it again, like I said. But that's what we used for, oh, come on. Invalid expression, what's going on here? Oh, it's not part of the trigger body. I think I replaced the wrong part. So let's get rid of this. This is supposed to be just a response. Date. So use that second one I just sent in there if you guys are following along at home. And I'll do the same thing over here, and this will give us the prettier response. Okay. Last one, if everything works correctly, we'll call it last one and call it a day. We saved it. No errors. Go ahead and test it. While this is going, what we'll do is we'll go check the other one. And on our notes, there's that note that we had created before. Please move forward with this lead. So it was approved and it was on that date. There's the ding letting us know this time zone is way off. Where does it think I am? Oh, UTC. I'm not there, so I'm going to change this. So apparently it's about 7 p.m. So hopefully those that are in the UK area, good evening. Just as we're wrapping up here. So I'm going to actually reject this one and see what happens. So please double check. This is a duplicate lead. That's why I'm rejecting it. Please double check before sending next time. So with that, we're going to come over here, hit F5. Hope and trust that it comes through. Oh, there it goes, refreshing. So, well, as this is going through, I again appreciate everybody jumping on here. Anticipate doing another one next week. Haven't fully decided what we're going to work on next week. So if you guys have thoughts and ideas, please leave them in the comments. Looking at probably highlighting a couple of people on the development side. Next week, looking at Daryl Labar, like I mentioned before, and then also potentially Stephen Smith. He's somebody that used to work for Microsoft, and now he's part of the community. Not that he wasn't part of the community at Microsoft, but he's been helping me promote my channel, and so I very much appreciate that. So thank you, Stephen, and want to make sure that I reciprocate and highlight what he's been doing in the community. He's got a podcast from CRM Audio as well, and so we'll be highlighting that next week. So anyways, just as we're wrapping up here, we have that one come through. You see that the dates have been updated here for the Seattle timeframe. And so hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Again, just kind of recapping of what we've done today. We talked about the news in the community, what's going on there, what's coming out. We've also covered the upcoming Power Platform World Tour. That's going to be in Tampa, and then Silicon Valley, San Jose area, and then Chicago. And then also have been going through this flow. And so hopefully you guys, I can take a screenshot of this if you guys think this is helpful. I can re-record this in a more unified sort of bacon bites. I think that's maybe what I'll do is just re-record this so that way people are able to consume this without having to watch sort of the learning curve that was this item. So very much appreciate everybody jumping on here and checking us out. Feel free to, again, please hit the thumbs up. Let us know that you liked it so that way we know we're going the right direction. If there's ways to improve or other things you guys want us to see, let us know in the comments, and we look forward to catching you next time. And have a great Saturday in the beginning of 2019. Thanks, y'all.